Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're all in for a treat right now. I'm going to do a reel in a bag project that Pakesh sent in. He sent it in because there were a couple of pieces. There was this switch assembly, cotter pin, and a bar, kind of all just taped together. Said it's a reel in a bag project. Well, as soon as I went to open it up, I figured I might as well just keep opening it up. And now we got it all in pieces and parts, and I'll try and show you how it goes together. So what is it? Well, it's the Fenwick Eagle 8500. It's a rear drag fishing reel, and it was made to complement the Fenwick rods, and it kind of has a design like a cardinal. I've seen these before, but never worked on one. Don't have the schematics, have a bunch of pieces and parts. And first thing I noticed when I opened it up was the rear jag assembly was all jammed together. It was jammed together because the washers had dried to the metal plates. These are kind of leather washers. They dried out, and I figured maybe I would just clean that all up. And then when I got through about half of it, I said, you know, let's go ahead and do this as a true reel in a bag project where it's completely exposed. So if you have one of these, hopefully you have it in parts. It'll be easier for you to see how to put those four pieces back together again. And well, you're going to see how the whole reel basically goes back together again. And if we have any success with this thing, it'll be fishing again. If not, it will be lessons learned. So I'm going to start by working on that rear drag system. I liked what I saw the one time. Somebody said, you know, all the parts are there except for the ones that are missing. So we'll see. I think they're all here. This is the carrier. This was jammed in. It was pressed all against the rear drag assembly, which starts with this little click mechanism. And that's part one of the mystery. So this piece was kind of taped together. It's got a little stud on the back of it and a hole on the top of it. It's a bar. And that's going to provide the click. So that little stud is going to bounce in and out of these ridges here and click. But this was off the assembly, which is what got me started about having to go in underneath there and deal with the pieces anyway. Well, these were very dry, so we want to get them lubricated. And I'm going to use a fishing reel drag grease. This is Cal's Universal Drag Grease to try and restore some of the flexibility to these drag washers. Most of the time these washers are Teflon or another kind of hard material, and I'm not quite sure what these are, but I do know they stuck together and they were non-functional as a rear drag. So we'll make that better. All right, so let's review how a rear drag works. A rear drag kind of has a pressure plate up top that's going to lock on the spool. It has a series of washers and metal washers in between. One is going to hold it to the case, one is going to hold it to the shaft. And when you lock the shaft, which is this lock, and the case, which is this lock, together, eventually that shaft, which holds the axle in it, will not be able to move, and that's when you have a full drag assembly. So the drag assembly sits underneath here in that carrier. And I guess we can start. Let's see how many of these I can get together. So the first one is a pressure plate. And we have the first of the drag washers. That's probably as far as we're going to go. We have two eared washers and one center washer. So let's go ahead and put that in. I have no schematic for this reel. This is completely and utterly flying under the radar here. So first one goes up top, seats in, and lines flush with this. First of the washers goes on the back side of this. First of the eared washers goes in. And these sit in the channels in the case, just like that. And you usually need a pick or a screwdriver or something to align these and get them seated properly, and of course I am way out of alignment with that. just take your time, be patient, work them down, and eventually you will get these seated correctly. Just like that. All right, the first washer is in. Time for the second one. Again, just kind of nest them in there. The second one is the rectangular one, or the keyed washer. The third one goes in next. So we have a 3 drag. You got a lot of drag power in that. And then this is the last one. And again, it nests into 2 slots here. Then we have the spring. And we have the plastic adjuster. Be careful as you put this one on. And we have a ring that's going to hold that whole assembly in. That's going to go in a slot in the case. And it is a spring, so be careful as you're loading this in that it doesn't shoot out. And you can usually do this by hand strength. You may need an assist from a screwdriver. Just make sure you hear that nice click. That's the back end of the drag assembly now. There is 2 more pieces to that. There's a adjuster button, which is going to fit over the star, and a screw. But this is where mystery part number 1 goes. So there's a little stud on the back of this one. Kind of hard to see, but you'll see a bump there. And there's a little metal stud here, so you can see that's going to line up and provide the click. And we want to just work this so that you can get the cap mount over the stars on that piece. And we'll tighten that down. Alright, well, the drag assembly parts are complete. And this is an assembly where you can put it together without doing the case. Sometimes you get a split case. We're okay here. All right, that's this piece. Next step then, I'm going to go ahead and put the pinion and the bearing in. We're going to oil that bearing. There's 2 sides to this bearing. There's a shielded side and a more of an open side. I want to make sure that this spins easily. And the shielded side goes up. I want to make sure that it spins easily because that's an important part of the overall assembly. Yep, it's spinning nicely. All right, this one goes up. I told myself I'm going to start doing this now. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the outside of these bearings so the next guy that comes in doesn't have any difficulty getting that bearing sleeve out. We're also going to put grease onto the pinion gear itself. Now, I checked and inspected before I did that. You want to make sure all of the teeth are uniform and clean. One little bit of grease left here on that piece that's going to go inside the case, and this whole assembly then can be inserted in. Just like that. You want to push down on the bearing. Make sure it's seated all the way in, and we have a snap ring which was holding that in. I used the snap ring pliers to remove it, and sometimes you can get these in without using the pliers on the way back in, sometimes not. Sometimes it's like that little clip we had on the other side. Well, I'm going to hold this. We'll see if I can do it with the snap ring pliers. So while I'm struggling with this, it's a good time to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe to my channel, hit that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting. So that's the snap ring pliers. The 2 little studs are there, and then as you compress it, it gives you the room to install. Just be careful, these things can shoot. All right, pretty much got that in. We're just going to push it down to make sure that it seats all the way in the slots. Just do the visual on that. That's a retaining clip. We're good there. All right. And then I'm going to just take the spool assembly. There's nothing much going on with that spool assembly. We're going to remount that. That has a little key that's going to hold it tight. And this is an 11mm nut. And you should be able to use an 11mm wrench. Oh, that's the 12. Here's the 11. Forgot which I use, the socket or the wrench. There we go. If you search long enough, you'll find it. And then give it a spin. Make sure that it's doing what it should do. Check the bail at this point. Make sure that the bail is firing. When you do a service on a bail, you do not need to remove the bail springs or the side arms unless it's not working. Just a simple little oiling at the junctions and on the line roller is enough. All right, we're continuing to try and figure this puzzle out. Next up would be your crosswind block. You clean the crosswind block, a little bit of grease onto the back and inside that little piece where it's going to ride on the studs. You want to get grease into all of the teeth on the crosswind block because that will be working in conjunction with the main gear. And you want to make sure that your crosswind block has grease on the front of it because that's where your crosswind block, I said block, that's the gear. The gear has grease on the front of it because this block, which is going to make the axle shaft go up and down, is the next in. There is a mystery part number 2, 3, and 4 here. That is the trip lever for your anti-reverse. This is the button that works it. And I believe that this is the carter pin that's going to hold them together. Just like that. It seems to fit. This is a guess. Seems to fit. The only question I got is how do you bend that carter pin to hold it all together? All right. I'm going to take care of that before I go much further. This should align like this. Button should go in here. The metal spring portion. Let's get this other piece out of here. It's just going to get in the way at the moment. So my take on that is this goes this way. This comes in underneath. So that's the set. Boy, did that take a while, huh? And now I got that little hole right here. I guess we're going to try and get that cotter pin through. Success. Then of course that needs to get bent to have any functionality to it. There we go. So that should work. This should be the off position where you're working that, and then this should be the on position. Ah! Gosh, I think you're going to have a reel that works. You're very interesting. Okay. Intuitive. All right, we've greased this up. We're just going for reassembly now. Next up then would be our main gear. Notice on the back of the main gear here, dirt, we'll get rid of that dirt. Rid of the old grease. There's no grease in the main gear itself. We're just going to check the teeth, put fresh grease in. And what I was starting to say is that we have a little clip there. You'll notice that black clip in the back that's got a center hole in it right here. That little center hole is going to need to get aligned with the little stud here on this. Kind of fun thing to do. And they give you a window to look through to do that. That's why you have the hole in the main gear. All right, we're going to just grease the back end of the drive for the oscillation gear. Most of the time you can look over the top, at least as you start centering this. Okay, so I just wanted to stop the video for a moment because I wanted to go get a flashlight just to check to make sure that that's in there, and it's in there, doing what it should be doing. Next up then, we have our axle shaft comes through. You can put a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft. These two ridges here are where the axle shaft clip is going to hold it in place. So you want to align that clip one high and one low on here. The axle shaft is in. Now we're going to grab that clip from each side. I'm going to fold that hold down clamp down. Like that. And then we're going to grab that screw. That screw I know I have because that wasn't detached when I originally got it. This might be fun. Me and small screws don't get together. So while I'm doing this piece, I would encourage you, if you have a question, to please leave it in the comment section. And maybe it's on this reel, maybe it's on a different reel. But if I can help you, I'll try and answer that question for you. Maybe you're struggling with the reassembly of a reel like we're doing here. Maybe you're wondering what just dropped on the floor. That was my grease brush. I'll wipe it off. A little bit of grease on the outside post. Maybe you have a question about a rear drag reel in particular, or just a general question about a fishing reel. I'll try to answer those for you. We should be able to cover up the case now. When we cover up that case, it's going to hold that little click mechanism in there. That seats nicely. The three screws here are all the same size, so they can go on either side of the case. So what have we done so far? Well, we identified all of the pieces. Kind of flying blindly because we didn't have the schematic for this, but we were kind of using our knowledge of a rear drag fishing reel to help us along. We were looking to make sure that we had a good drag system. This one was frozen, so we took it apart and cleaned it. And then we kind of used some organized thinking there about how to put it back together again. And I think we're just a little bit short here on getting the handle correct, installed, and giving it a test to see what's going on. I had to back this one out. For some reason, this one's just not going in as easy as it should. And that could be worn threads on this screw. I'll try a regular screwdriver here. That's probably what it is. I think it's probably just worn threads. It's a little tight. Not sure what that causes. There we go. It's getting easier. Funny how that works from time to time. Might have been a little bit of dust or dirt or that. Okay, that's on. Grab our handle and cap. Insert that. Handle screw on this side. You know what's nice? There's no pieces left in the box. Whenever you're doing around a reel in a bag project, that's always a concern, is that something is missing along the way. In this case, I think we're all right. And this. Okay, set up there, set up here. Last button. See if it works. And look at that. Am I surprised? No, but now we should be able to have it in the off mode. There you go. So we've successfully reinstalled our anti-reverse. I guess that's the only thing I don't like about that reel, is that's one noisy anti-reverse there. But I guess that's the way they designed it, so there you go. All right, well, that's a reel in a bag project with some tips along the way about how to work on rear drag reels. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, again, please subscribe. To those who are first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you're doing to keep us safe during the pandemic. And to all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.